Nearly 2.5 million people have signed a petition in support of a truck driver who was charged in connection with a tragic fatal crash, a case that has sparked nationwide debate over justice, immigration, sentencing, and human compassion. The story revolves around a young truck driver, an undocumented immigrant, who became the focus of public attention after a horrific accident claimed 4 lives and left many injured. His case has since transcended the courtroom and entered the public consciousness, igniting passionate responses from supporters, critics, legal experts, activists, and ordinary citizens who see in his story a reflection of broader societal issues. The driver was transporting goods through Colorado when his brakes failed while descending a steep section of Interstate 70, one of the busiest highways in the region. Despite his attempts to regain control, the massive semi-truck barreled into traffic that had slowed because of congestion. The result was a fiery crash that caused the deaths of 4 innocent motorists and injuries to several others. The devastation of the accident shocked the public, leaving families in grief and raising immediate questions about responsibility and safety. Prosecutors charged the driver with vehicular homicide and dozens of related counts, eventually leading to a sentencing that stunned many: 110 years in prison, a mandatory minimum under Colorado law. The sentence quickly gained widespread attention and sparked outrage, not only because of its length but also because of the circumstances of the accident. Many people believed the punishment was excessive, especially since the crash was the result of brake failure, a mechanical issue that could happen to any truck driver under similar conditions. The fact that the driver was relatively inexperienced, reportedly working under pressure, and did not appear to act with malicious intent further fueled the argument that his sentence did not fit the crime. Critics noted that violent offenders, including convicted murderers and rapists, often receive far shorter sentences than the one handed to this young truck driver. Social media played a crucial role in turning the case into a nationwide movement. A petition on change.org began circulating, calling for clemency, reduced sentencing, or a reconsideration of the charges. Within weeks, it gathered millions of signatures, eventually nearing 2.5 million supporters. This massive show of public solidarity was unprecedented for a case involving a truck accident, highlighting how deeply people were moved by the perceived injustice. Supporters of the petition emphasized that while the victims' families deserve justice, justice should also account for fairness, proportionality, and the recognition that the driver did not intentionally cause harm. The petition drew attention from truckers, immigrant rights activists, celebrities, and even legal professionals who criticized the sentencing structure. Trucking industry workers were particularly vocal, pointing out the grueling conditions drivers face, the pressure to meet deadlines, and the constant fear of mechanical failures. Many said the accident could have happened to any driver and argued that the trucking company and vehicle maintenance systems should bear more responsibility than a single young man behind the wheel. Some activists also stressed the role of immigration status in shaping public perception, noting that the driver's identity as an undocumented immigrant made him more vulnerable to scapegoating and harsh punishment. Victims' families, however, expressed mixed emotions. Some remained firm that the driver should be held accountable for the deaths caused by his vehicle, emphasizing that their loved ones could never be brought back. They viewed the accident as preventable, arguing that the driver had options, such as runaway truck ramps, that he failed to use in time. For them, the loss was immeasurable, and they felt justice required significant punishment. Others among the families, however, joined calls for compassion, agreeing that while responsibility was necessary, the punishment went far beyond what was reasonable under the circumstances. The legal framework surrounding the case also came under intense scrutiny. Colorado law mandates strict sentencing for certain crimes, with little flexibility for judges to issue lighter punishments even in extraordinary circumstances. In this case, the judge who presided over sentencing openly stated that his hands were tied by statutory requirements and that he did not believe the driver deserved such a long sentence. This admission further fueled calls for reform, as critics argued that mandatory minimums strip away judicial discretion and lead to absurd outcomes where punishment does not align with intent or context. Public pressure eventually reached political leaders. Colorado's governor, along with other officials, faced mounting calls to intervene. After the petition crossed millions of signatures, discussions about commutation, clemency, and sentence reduction became central. Legal experts highlighted that the extraordinary level of public attention placed unusual pressure on the justice system, illustrating how grassroots activism and digital platforms can influence legal outcomes. Trucking associations and immigrant rights organizations held rallies, emphasizing the need for systemic changes in both transportation safety and sentencing laws. The case also exposed broader debates about immigration. Supporters of the driver pointed out that focusing excessively on his undocumented status distracted from the real issues of mechanical failure, trucking industry standards, and sentencing laws. Opponents, however, argued that his presence in the country illegally should not be overlooked, claiming that if immigration laws were properly enforced, he would not have been in the position to cause such a tragedy. This clash highlighted the polarized views in the United States on immigration, justice, and accountability, with each side using the case to reinforce their broader political positions. As the movement for clemency gained momentum, celebrities and public figures began weighing in, amplifying the issue beyond trucking and immigrant rights circles. Musicians, actors, and social media influencers urged their followers to sign the petition, share the story, and demand change. The viral nature of the campaign demonstrated the power of digital advocacy in shaping narratives and influencing political leaders. At the same time, it sparked conversations about whether viral outrage can sometimes oversimplify complex legal cases, leaving out nuances in favor of emotional responses. In response to the unprecedented outcry, the Colorado governor announced that he would commute the driver's sentence, reducing it from 110 years to 10 years. This decision was met with relief from supporters, many of whom saw it as a victory for justice and humanity. Critics, however, argued that political leaders had bowed to public pressure rather than upholding the rule of law, warning that such precedents could undermine confidence in the judicial process. Regardless of the differing opinions, the case became a landmark example of how public sentiment can intersect with the legal system and reshape outcomes. The story of the truck driver and the petition that rallied nearly 2.5 million people is more than just a case about one man. It is a reflection of multiple societal issues, the harsh realities of the trucking industry, the consequences of mandatory minimum sentencing laws, the challenges of immigration policy, and the evolving power of digital activism. It shows how tragedy can unite people in unexpected ways and how compassion, fairness, and justice remain contested ideals in the American legal and political landscape. For the families who lost loved ones, the pain endures, and for the driver, the reduced sentence still represents years of incarceration. But for millions of people who signed their names in support, the case serves as a reminder that voices raised together can indeed shape the course of justice.